Have you ever wondered what happens when a heart decides love no longer exists? Elena believed love was a cruel illusion, something people invented to cover their loneliness. Life had taught her that promises break, people leave, and hope is dangerous. She carried her wounds quietly, smiling for the world while inside she built walls so high that no one dared to climb them. But destiny doesn't always knock gently. It collides. And one night, in the most unexpected of places, Elena met Adrian. He wasn't the type to use sweet words or empty vows. He didn't come with flowers, confessions, or the fairy tale gestures she had long stopped believing in. Instead, he came with silence, patience, and a steady hand that reached for hers when the world around her was falling apart. What Elena didn't know in that moment was this: a single touch can change everything. A hand held in the dark can speak louder than 1,000 declarations. This is Elena and Adrian's story. A story of broken trust and unexpected healing. A story where love wasn't loud, it was quiet, enduring, and strong enough to make her believe again. If you choose to stay with Elena and Adrian's story, you will witness more than a romance. You will witness a transformation. This isn't about a girl falling in love with a man. It's about a woman who had sworn never to trust again, and the quiet, unshakable strength of someone who refused to let her drown in her own silence. Elena believed love was nothing more than a lie dressed up in pretty words. Every betrayal she carried had turned her heart into stone. But in Adrian, she didn't find another man trying to break down her defenses with charm. Instead, she found a mystery, a man who seemed to understand her pain without asking for explanations. In this journey, you will discover moments that will shake you, moments where Elena is forced to confront not only Adrian's presence in her life, but also the fears and scars she has tried to bury. You will see how a single gesture, like holding a hand in the middle of chaos, can become a turning point that changes everything. But this story is not just about comfort, it is about risk. Every step deeper into Adrian's world reveals shadows from his past too. Behind his calm strength lies a history he doesn't speak of, a secret that could shatter everything he is offering Elena. So what will you experience? A tale filled with breathtaking moments, heartbreaking revelations, and the kind of suspense that keeps you asking, what happens next? You will walk with Elena through her doubts, her tears, and the fragile hope that begins to grow despite everything. You will feel Adrian's silent battles, his unspoken loyalty, and the weight of the truth he carries. This story promises not only love, but the reminder that sometimes the most powerful words are never spoken, and that even the deepest wounds can heal when two broken souls dare to hold on. Elena Marquez lived in a world that looked ordinary to anyone passing by, but inside her it was anything but ordinary. By day, she worked in a small bookstore tucked between two tall, crumbling brick buildings on a quiet street. The scent of paper and ink surrounded her, a comfort she clung to because books never betrayed her. Stories stayed loyal, characters didn't walk away. She arranged shelves with precision, spoke politely to customers, and carried herself with a gentle grace that made strangers assume her life was perfectly intact. But behind her eyes lived a loneliness she never dared to confess. Her apartment, just 3 blocks away, reflected her life. Minimal, clean, but almost too quiet. Walls painted in pale beige, curtains always half drawn, a single coffee cup left on the counter like she was afraid of needing more. She had photographs once, but those were tucked away in a drawer she hadn't opened in years. The world had taken enough from her. She decided not to give it the satisfaction of taking her heart too. And then came Adrian Cole. He wasn't the kind of man who filled a room with noise. Quite the opposite. He carried silence like a second skin, yet his presence was impossible to ignore. Tall, with dark hair that often fell slightly over his brow, and eyes the color of storm clouds right before rain, Adrian carried a calm intensity. He didn't smile easily, but when he did, it seemed less like an expression and more like a secret he was reluctantly sharing. Elena first noticed him in the bookstore. He never rushed, never bought much, yet he came often. Sometimes he would stand in the corner, flipping through pages as if searching for something more than words. Other times he would linger by the counter, asking Elena about a book, but listening with the kind of attention that made her uneasy. Not because it was invasive, but because it was rare, genuine. What Elena didn't know was that Adrian carried his own shadows. His past wasn't written in the open like hers. His was hidden in choices and memories he rarely allowed anyone to see. He had traveled, fought, and lost more than he admitted. There was a weight in his silence, but also an unshakable steadiness, as if he had weathered storms and learned how to stand still in the middle of chaos. The town itself became the backdrop of their quiet collision. Small, almost forgotten, with cobblestone streets, peeling paint on shop windows, and a clock tower that chimed every evening at 6. People here lived slow lives, repeating routines, whispering gossip, but never expecting anything extraordinary. And yet, inside this unremarkable town, 2 lives were about to intertwine in a way neither of them had prepared for. Elena's hidden desire was simple yet terrifying: to be seen, not for her smile, not for her politeness, but for the broken, messy truth she kept locked away. Adrian's hidden fear was equally sharp, that if he let someone close, his past would destroy them too. And so when Adrian's hand would one day reach for hers, it wouldn't just be comfort. It would be a question neither of them knew how to answer. Can 2 broken souls find wholeness together? It was a Thursday evening when the first fracture appeared in Elena's carefully controlled routine. The rain had begun earlier than expected, tapping softly against the bookstore's windows as the last customers trickled out. She was about to lock the door when she noticed him again. Adrian, standing by the travel section, his head bent over a book he hadn't moved from in weeks. "Elena," he said softly, as though he had rehearsed her name 100 times before daring to speak it aloud. The sound startled her. She wasn't used to customers addressing her like that, as if he knew her, as if her name wasn't just a label but something precious. She cleared her throat, forcing herself to respond casually. "Yes?" He closed the book gently and looked at her with those storm-colored eyes. "Do you ever believe books find us before we find them?" It was such a strange question that Elena froze. Most people asked about discounts or bestsellers. No one had ever asked her about belief. For a moment, she wanted to brush him off, to keep her walls intact. But something in his tone, calm, almost searching, made her answer despite herself. "Sometimes," she whispered, "but I don't think they always bring what we want. Just what we need." Adrian's lips curved into the faintest smile, not mocking, not charming, just knowing. "That's what I thought." He placed the book back on the shelf without buying it and walked out into the rain, leaving Elena staring at the empty space he left behind. Something about him unsettled her, not in danger, but in mystery. What was he really searching for? The following days blurred into routine again, yet his presence lingered like an unfinished sentence. Adrian returned often, but not with the urgency of a man chasing answers, more like someone who knew time was on his side. Each visit carried a subtle shift, a glance that lasted too long, a question too personal to be casual, a silence that demanded attention. Then, one evening, as she was closing shop, she found something strange. On the counter, beneath the register, lay a folded piece of paper. She hadn't placed it there. Hands trembling slightly, Elena opened it. The note was handwritten in strong, deliberate strokes. "Don't be afraid of the silence. Sometimes it hides the only truth worth listening to." There was no signature, but she knew. Adrian. Her heart raced, not because of fear, but because of the strange intimacy in those words. They weren't romantic, yet they cut deeper than any compliment she had ever received. It was as if he had looked directly into her soul and seen the silence she carried. She considered confronting him, demanding to know what he meant. But something stopped her. Instead, she tucked the note into her coat pocket, carrying it with her like a secret. Little did Elena know, Adrian had reasons for those words. His life had been shaped by silence, choices never spoken, grief never shared. He saw in Elena the same unspoken wounds he carried, and though he hadn't planned to reveal himself, something about her presence broke through his carefully built restraint. The first true turning point came the following week. Elena was walking home after work when the rain returned, heavy and relentless. The streets were nearly empty, shops shuttered, lamps casting pale circles of light across the cobblestones. She pulled her coat tighter, shivering against the cold. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart leapt. Fear, instinct. But when she turned, it was Adrian. He didn't rush toward her, didn't call her name. He simply walked beside her, his steps matching hers, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. "You'll catch a fever," he said quietly, extending an umbrella. Elena hesitated. Taking it meant accepting something, not just shelter from the rain, but his presence. Still, she reached for it. Their hands brushed. The warmth of his skin startled her, sending a current she hadn't felt in years. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was rain against the umbrella, but in that silence, something unspoken bloomed. Adrian's eyes flicked to her hand as if he wanted to take it but held himself back. Elena, meanwhile, fought an inner war. Why does his nearness feel both terrifying and safe? When they reached her building, Adrian stopped. His gaze held hers, steady but unreadable. Then, without a word, he slipped something into her hand, a second folded note. This one read, "Sometimes we hold back not because we don't care, but because the truth is heavier than words can carry." By the time she looked up, Adrian was already walking away, leaving her standing in the doorway. Her heart pounding. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Questions circled endlessly. Why me? What truth? What was Adrian hiding? Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a story that would pull her into a world of secrets she never imagined. And what she didn't realize was this. The very hand she would one day hold in trust might also be the hand that carried the past strong enough to break her heart. The days that followed blurred into a strange rhythm. Elena pretended her life hadn't changed, but deep down she knew Adrian had disturbed something she had worked years to bury. His notes lived in her drawer now, folded neatly, but her eyes found them every night as if they were questions waiting for answers. At the bookstore, she tried to act as though nothing lingered between them. And yet each time Adrian entered, the air shifted. His silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged, as though every glance carried meanings unspoken. Customers noticed too. One older woman even whispered to Elena once, "That man looks at you as if you hold his secret." Elena flushed and dismissed it. But the words haunted her. One evening, she gathered her courage. As Adrian browsed near the counter, she asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" "You never buy the books." Adrian lifted his eyes, steady and unreadable. "Maybe I'm not here for the books." Her breath caught. The truth sat there, unpolished and raw, but he didn't press it further. Instead, he picked up a volume of poetry, left it unopened, and walked out. The door chimed behind him, and Elena stood frozen, her chest tight with emotions she couldn't name. The tension only grew when a new figure entered Elena's life. A man named Marcus, charming and talkative, began frequenting the bookstore. Unlike Adrian, Marcus filled silence with laughter and stories, weaving words like silk. He made Elena laugh in a way she hadn't in years, and for a moment she almost forgot the weight in her chest. But Adrian noticed. The first time Marcus lingered too long at the counter, Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt, didn't speak, but when his eyes met Elena's, she felt something stir. Was it jealousy? Protection? Or something deeper, more dangerous? Later that week, Elena found another note slipped into the pages of a book she had shelved. Not everyone who smiles is safe. Some truths hide behind laughter. Her blood ran cold. Was Adrian warning her? Or was he the danger himself? The mystery deepened when Elena began noticing small inconsistencies in Adrian's life. He never spoke of family, avoided personal questions, and disappeared for days without explanation. Once she saw a scar peeking from beneath his sleeve, long, jagged, the kind that told a story of violence. When she asked, his response was chillingly vague. "Some wounds aren't meant for stories," Adrian said quietly, turning away. That night she dreamed of him, standing in shadows, reaching for her hand, but never touching it. When she woke, her chest ached with confusion. Why him? Why now? And what was he hiding? The breaking point came one rainy evening. Elena was closing the store when Marcus appeared, offering to walk her home. His presence was comforting at first, but halfway down the street she noticed Adrian standing across the road, half hidden beneath the glow of a lamppost. He wasn't moving, just watching. Marcus laughed, oblivious, telling a story about his travels. But Elena couldn't focus. Adrian's eyes followed her every step until she reached her door. Later, when she opened her coat pocket, she discovered another note she hadn't felt him slip in. "Be careful who you let walk you home. Some paths aren't what they seem." Her heart pounded. The handwriting was unmistakable, Adrian's, but how had he placed it without her noticing? And why did every word feel like both a warning and a confession? Confusion became a storm inside her. Adrian's silence was pulling her in, yet Marcus's warmth was tempting her to forget. Every choice seemed dangerous, every step uncertain. One night, she confronted Adrian directly. "What are you trying to tell me?" she demanded, holding the notes in her trembling hands. Adrian's gaze was steady, but shadowed. "That the world isn't as simple as you want it to be. And neither am I," her voice cracked. "Then why me?" For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, longing, and a truth he wasn't ready to release. "Because you remind me of everything I lost." "And everything I still don't deserve." Elena's world tilted. His words opened more questions than answers. What had he lost? What was he hiding? And why did her heart ache with the thought of walking away from him? What she didn't realize was this. Adrian's past was inching closer to her present. And soon, silence would no longer be enough to protect them both. And somewhere in the distance, Marcus's easy laughter carried a weight of its own, a weight that would force Elena to choose which man was truth and which was danger. The night it happened, the bookstore was quieter than usual, its shelves cloaked in shadows as the rain hammered against the windows. Elena was finishing her closing routine when the door creaked open. Startled, she looked up. Marcus stood there, dripping wet, his smile unusually forced. "Still working late?" he asked, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Elena's unease prickled. Something in his tone was off. The playful lightness she had grown used to replaced with something heavier. He moved closer, his presence filling the space in a way that felt suffocating. "I thought I'd walk you home," Marcus continued, lowering his voice. "Can't have you out there all alone." Before Elena could respond, the door opened again. Adrian, his tall frame, stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. Eyes locked on Marcus with an intensity that made the air turn sharp. "Leave," Adrian said simply. Marcus chuckled, though it lacked humor. "Funny. You've been hanging around like a ghost for weeks, and now you think you can order me out?" He glanced at Elena, his smile twisting. "You really don't know who this man is, do you?" Elena froze. "What do you mean?" Marcus's eyes glittered. "Ask him. Ask Adrian why he disappears. Ask him what he's running from. Because I promise you, his silence isn't romantic, it's dangerous." Adrian's jaw tightened, his fists curling at his sides. "That's enough." The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Elena's heart pounded as she looked between them. Two men carrying truths she didn't understand. The storm outside raged, but the storm inside the bookstore was worse. "Adrian," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "Tell me he's lying." For the first time, Adrian's composure cracked. His eyes, always steady, flickered with a vulnerability she had never seen. "Elena, there are things about me you don't know. Things I can't undo." Marcus stepped closer, seizing the moment. "See, he won't even deny it. You're safer with me. At least I'm not hiding behind scraps of paper and half-truths." Adrian's gaze snapped to him. "Dangerous now. You don't know what you're talking about." "Then tell her." Marcus pressed, his voice sharp. "Tell her why you're really here." Elena's breath caught. The silence stretched, unbearable as Adrian's chest rose and fell with the weight of unsaid words. Finally, he looked at her, and in his eyes she saw it, the truth he had tried so hard to bury. "Elena," he said quietly, "I didn't come here by accident. I came because I was searching for something I lost a long time ago. And when I found you, I knew I couldn't walk away." Her pulse thundered. "What did you lose?" Adrian hesitated, pain flickering across his face. "Someone I couldn't protect. Someone who trusted me and paid the price." The words hung heavy, filling the room with ghosts. Marcus's expression hardened. "So you see, Elena, his hands aren't clean. Whatever warmth you think you feel, it's built on blood and regret." Adrian's voice cut through, fierce and desperate. "Yes, my past is scarred, but don't you dare decide for her. Elena deserves the truth from me, not your twisted version of it." Elena's throat tightened, tears burning her eyes. The man who had silently reached for her hand, who had steadied her world with nothing but presence, was now standing on the edge of breaking everything. Her choice, her belief, her future. It all hinged on what she did next. And in that moment, she realized there was no going back. Whatever path she chose, it would change everything forever. The silence after Adrian's confession felt heavier than any storm outside. Elena's heart raced, torn between fear and something deeper, an aching pull she couldn't ignore. Marcus's words rang in her ears, sharp and accusing, but when she looked at Adrian, she didn't see a monster. She saw a man scarred by grief, carrying guilt he didn't deserve, yet still capable of holding her with a gentleness the world had long denied her. "Elena," Adrian said softly, his voice almost breaking, "I can't change what's behind me, but I can promise you this. I will never let my silence hurt you." "Not again." Her tears slipped free. For years she had built walls, convinced love was nothing but a lie. But here was a man offering her not perfection, not safety wrapped in pretty words, but truth, raw and unpolished. And for the first time she realized that love wasn't about promises never broken. It was about hands that didn't let go, even when the world tried to tear them apart. She stepped closer, ignoring Marcus's sharp intake of breath. Slowly, deliberately, Elena placed her trembling hand into Adrian's. The warmth of his palm steadied her, and in that moment belief bloomed inside her fragile heart. Marcus turned away, his laughter bitter, but Elena no longer listened. The choice was hers, and she had made it. The world outside was still storming, but within the shelter of Adrian's hand, Elena finally understood. Love wasn't a fairy tale. It was flawed, painful, sometimes born from brokenness, but it was real, and for the first time in her life, Elena believed.